The dates.
Like you get the box now.
Oh yeah, the dates would be good.
Dates out. In a second.
Will you read the quote out loud?
I'm just waiting for people to say.
Everybody gather around. This is the first Salon of 2024, isn't it?
It really is. It is the first Salon. Welcome, humans. It is the first Salon of 2024. Thanks for coming! Yay! This is an amazing number of people, just as like this amazingly fit, and I didn't even try. How cool. So, no one could come up with a good enough question for the Salon. It didn't come naturally. So, I'm just being slightly selfish and posing this to you, which we'll read together, and multiple people I think should read it aloud. Which is a quote by Joseph Beuys. Do you guys know who he is?
No.
Yes. I saw the Thunder Talk.
You saw the Thunder Talk twice. I have given the same talk twice at Mars about Joseph Beuys. He's an amazing artist. I don't want to take up too much time talking about him.
But a brief.
Okay, he is was an artist. He was a teacher, a theorist, a philosopher. German in the 20th century. I said this during the Mars talk, but many people have said the three most important artists of the 20th century were Duchamp, Warhol, and Beuys, though specifically in America, Beuys is the least known and understood out of this trio. So Beuys made objects in his youth, largely using like very basic materials. He was obsessed with like fat as a substance. But as he grew older, he stopped making objects and pedagogy became his art form. And he would do, and performance art. He'd do these like really weird, amazing performance art pieces. He lived in a gallery for 3 days with a wild coyote when he toured America, his first time in America. And the piece was called I Like America and America Likes Me. Brilliant. I highly recommend looking into him. He developed a theory of art as social sculpture. So the material of the medium is the relations between people. He believed art could change the world. It was very utopian, very idealistic, very beautiful. So this is a quote of his that I've like changed slightly just to kind of make it make sense. It's very dense. I would love to know what you guys think about this. If there's a part of it that you want to zero in on, or just deny it, negate it. I think there's a lot to unpack in here. Okay, so I'm just gonna read it, and then I think other people should read it. This is just a conversation. There's a lot of us here. I thought about moderating it, and then I was like, that's not the vibe. We did this last year, and we like learned a little bit. Sometimes people are super excited, and they like want to say a lot of things, and I love that. But other people kind of need the pauses and the moments of silence to feel like ready to speak themselves. And so if we can like make room for everybody and be like, I mean, whatever, also be rowdy. I don't really care. I just want to say that. Some people need some space before they talk. That's it. Have fun, be rowdy, and just talk or whatever. And we will roll joints. Okay, I will give it a go. Only on condition of a radical widening of definitions will it be possible for art and activities related to art to provide evidence that art is now the only evolutionary-revolutionary power. Only art is capable of dismantling the repressive effects of a senile social system that continues to totter along the deathline. To dismantle in order to rebuild, in order to build a social organism as a work of art. Every human being is an artist who learns to determine the other positions of the total artwork of the future social order. I know, it's a lot. Does someone else want to try and read it?
I thought you read it
Yeah.
perfectly.
Thank you. but someone else might have a different rhythm.
But a British
I don't know.
accent could do a lot.
Yeah, Jeff, hit us.
I can't. My eyes aren't up to reading it.
I've got.
Just get the joint rolling materials.
Someone could fake a British accent.
Yeah, that would be much better.
Does anyone have a response that they would like to throw out already? First of all, can we also just...
I think someone else should read it. I'm not going to be like,
Yeah, I think so too.
You think so too?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, Patrick.
People should
We're going to go counterclockwise.
and just find the rhythm. You don't even have to be like me next.
I'll read.
There we go.
Only on a condition of a radical widening of definitions will it be possible for art and activities related to art to provide evidence that art is now the only evolutionary-revolutionary power. Only art is capable of dismantling the repressive effects of a senile social system that continues to totter along the death line, to dismantle in order to build a social organism as a work of art. Every human being is an artist who learns to determine the other positions of the total artwork of the future social order.
I don't understand the last sentence, but I'll just read it out loud and maybe it'll come to me. Only on condition of a radical widening of definitions will it be possible for art and activities related to art to provide evidence that art is now the only evolutionary-revolutionary power. Only art is capable of dismantling the repressive effects of a senile social system that continues to totter along the deathline. To dismantle, in order to rebuild, a social organism as a work of art. Every human being is an artist who learns to determine the other positions of the total artwork of the future social order.
I'm also stuck on the last sentence.
Yeah, it's hard.
Here, can I just read the last sentence?
Yeah.
Every human being is an artist who learns to determine the other positions of the total artwork of the future social order.
I'm not troubled by the last sentence. That seems pretty clear. The second to last thing is not exactly a sentence, and that makes it hard to parse.
He was not a native English speaker.
Okay.
Would you count it as a mantra?
No, I'd call it a sentence fragment.
Well, I think there's a colon in there
Where?
after deathline.
Oh,
A very, yeah.
A faint colon.
Colon.
But it,
so what's being opposed? So that what I was reading as a fragment, which is to dismantle in order to build a social organism as a work of art. That is what does that refer to? What is it that is to dismantle in order to build a social organism as a work of art?
That the current senile social system must be dismantled in order to build the new social system, which is called the social organism, but it has to be as a work of art because it is built by artists.
Okay, so I'm not arguing whether it's true or false. I'm just trying to figure out what it means. So what that means is only art is capable of dismantling the repressive effects of a senile social system that continues to totter along the deathline. Only art is capable of dismantling in order to build a social organism as a work of art.
Correct.
So that's another thing that art is only able to do. Okay, got it. Thank you.
But only if you do the thing in the beginning where we widen the definition of art.
Right. But if we're all artists, then we're all capable, right?
So it's interesting, since it requires changing the definition of art, that if you were to substitute, like, only on condition of a radical widening of definitions will it be possible for the family and activities related to the family to provide evidence that the family is now the only evolutionary-revolutionary power. Only the family is capable of dismantling the repressive effects of a senile social system that continues to totter along the deathline. Only the family can dismantle in order to build a social organism as a work of familial practice. Every human being is a member of a family who learns to determine the other positions of the total family of the future social order. Like, I mean, it's opening up to us that we can, because it's not using the current definition of art, and it's asking us to change the definition of art. So I think it does allow us to slot something else in there, you know, sports, or I don't know, you do what you wish.
Which I think is a key to understanding the last sentence, which is that now when it says every human being is an artist, we now are reappropriating artist, or rather broadening artist, to mean the thing that can create the social organism as the work of art. Which helps me understand the last sentence at least.
But it seems like then anything counts.
Yeah, I do think anything counts. I think you sort of need to buy into the following things: that there's a current social order that's senile and is not meeting our needs, and that there's a thing that we can do that could renegotiate this current social order, and all of us can do it, and that will enable us to create a new social order. I think that's the basic gist of it, and I don't think you need to get hung up on art, because it's asking us to radically widen the definition of art.
Can we consider one caveat that I feel like is problematic in this, is that the social organism first must have food, water, right? If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the majority of the planet Earth doesn't have that. Are they capable of committing into this paradigm, or are they not? Because if I was someone who was starving in the Serengeti, to use like a very, I don't know, broad and like not particularly accurate phrase, am I able to like buy into this? Do I have the capability? Do I have that leverage?
Only if you radically change the definition.
Okay, interesting.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I'm just like,
I think she was trying.
Yeah.
They were trying to talk. I'll go after you though.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
To your point, I'm just like thinking about like the front lines of Eastern Ukraine, like
Right.
fucking Avdiivka, like they don't give a shit about any of this.
Sure.
They're like, they're on the front lines of the new world. Like they're with guns, like art, whatever.
Yeah.
Like-
Day-to-day survival.
Yeah, like Russia, like that's the thing that's happening too, and like they're not thinking about it. But I think I agree with everything it says. It's all true, and that's true too.
Regina?
That's the sign.
Sorry. Regina.
No, you're wonderful. I'm thinking about the social organism and its likeness to or as a work of art. Like, are those things interchangeable? And what does it mean to build a social organism that is an act of art? But I'm also thinking about this last sentence: an artist who learns to determine the other positions of the total artwork of the future social order. I think about that as like a human who learns to understand the ecology and the purpose of the other humans around them, which make the fabric of that social order. I'd be curious what y'all think about that.
Will you say
I think
that
that's
last
crucial.
part one more time?
I'll
The
try.
ecology.
Yeah, the ecology, the relationship of the self to the other in terms of the ecology of the society that we're building. So like, what is my relationship in relationship to you and what you serve and what you serve in our community, and being able to see those patterns, the other positions.
I think that has to do with like having agency as a human being, but also being part of something that is bigger than yourself. And what emerges of this, it's something that cannot be predictable by the single individual, but only by the collective working together.
Yeah, it has that constellation energy of like, this star is necessary and just as bright as this star.
It's like cells in an organism that they have certain agency, but they are part of tissues and organs and systems that do things that they don't do by themselves. Yeah.
Is every human being an artist?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Consensus.
From the Buddhist perspective, yes.
Can we vote on that?
Can we vote on it?
With a grumble.
Yeah.
We can't vote on it because you have to widen the definition, right? The whole, like this.
If you widen the definition enough, then definitely yes.
Yes.
Why
Okay, what happens
why would
if
you do that to any word?
Janitor.
It does seem
I have a problem with all the onlys in there. Like
Yes, yes, thank you.
very absolute.
Yeah.
And the fact that it all
Very
hinges
German.
on that first one.
He was German.
All the other
Translate it
onlys
back into
hinge on that
German.
first only.
Dulcinee, was this in your talk last year? Did you read this in your talk last year?
Which at Mars?
No, in
No,
Bush's-
it's not part of Open Door.
No.
No, it's not. I mean, it's confusing.
But that was like an
It's-
idea that was there. Like
Oh,
in your-
totally,
in your
yeah.
talk
Social
last year,
sculpture,
the-
yeah.
The one you gave like on Sunday last year?
Saturday.
2 years ago? I don't remember.
Saturday.
Dulcinea, will you tell us, do you think it's just true, or do you have problems with this as well?
I mean, I have a predisposition towards, well, okay. My interest in the sort of radical widening of definitions as it relates to art is because I find often I am not so impressed by discrete objects, or I think they have not so much to offer in terms of a staying power. It is like once every 3 years I see a movie that like stays with me in a deep way. It doesn't happen very often. And so I'm curious about this widening, because when you widen it and you start to see things that maybe you didn't consider as art before, the way that you approach it formally might take a different texture. And then all of a sudden you're maybe in a position to be creating lots of things you didn't even know you could create. And then structures and then systems.
That's why I guess I have trouble with the whole thing, because at the very beginning where you're widening it, then whatever we initially agree on and we come to the end, and if someone comes up with a counter, then we just go back to the beginning and say, oh, let's widen the definition.
If you take a word and you widen its definition, shouldn't it be a different word then?
Yeah.
Kind of
And then
loses
like,
some of
go
its
what
meaning.
you were just saying, Dulcinee, like there's some professions where clearly your only objective is destruction. So then that kind of works against all this, and then every human is not an artist.
So what you should perhaps have done, Dulcinea, is done it as the opposite of an optician's chart, with the first line being really small, and then the final line being legible to everybody.
Widening the definition.
Ask questions.
Do you feel like every being is engaged in an active reality creation, like all the time?
I don't think they know it all the time.
No, they won't know it, but like everybody's creating the reality as it
Definitely.
unfolds. Yeah,
Most
so-
people are creating
so that
consensual reality.
Artist equal creator? Sure, why not? Everybody's creating their reality all the time, right?
Is being an artist like a state of mind?
I don't know.
I would say yeah.
It's a good question.
It's creating beauty.
Creative.
What do you define it as creating beauty?
Yeah,
Yes,
there's a
but
lot of artists
only
who
on
can-
condition of widening the definition of beauty.
It's in the eye of the beholder, after all.
Yes, of course. I mean, I guess a different question is like, do we feel that art like has a rigid structure in your mind? Like, yes, you can interchange the word, but the word is art.
There's
So-
a lot of space between widening something and it making it infinite to the point of absurdity and emptiness.
I agree with
think
you.
there's like probably a lot of room between what are predisposed feelings about what art is, which is already a kind of amorphous thing, and just saying let's expand that container. It doesn't mean we have
So
to go
I
do so to the point of absurdity. I
So
don't think he's
it's-
saying that.
It's worth asking what would we like to include that's not currently being included?
Right.
And what would we not like to include that's not currently being included?
That's a more meaningful conversation, I think.
I would also add to that this art and activities related to art, and as we consider that breadth, I'm just like, I'm curious about those relationships too.
Because Dulcinee, you've talked a lot about like seeing something like what we're doing in Bombay Beach as a work of art, and also because when I think of the old, maybe more banal definition of art, and you think of it as being evolutionary and revolutionary, it's hard to think that when so much of art has been co-opted by commodification, elitism, the closed walls of the gallery world and of the, and so I think to say we want to reclaim that with something that's not so easily commodifiable and maybe not so easily definable is not necessarily an absurd gesture.
Well, I mean, I would want
and maybe a necessary one.
I would want to resist saying that there cannot, by definition, be bad art or even fascist art or even, socially regressive art. Like, I don't think we should build into the definition of art that it can only do good things. Do you?
I don't think that.
I think it's synonymous with truth.
So there can't be art. I mean, let's just take, or the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl, it changes or reinforces ways we relate to each other. It puts forward a certain model of masculinity, a certain model of success. It's pretty clearly a work of art, but I don't think it's working to dismantle our current structure. It's sort of working to solidify it, or maybe to push it more in a direction which I don't like personally, but I'd still call it a work of art.
Wait, what's a work of art? The
Super Bowl.
Like as an event?
Yeah.
Is a work of art?
It's a social organism.
It's a social organism that's like doing these things.
I don't think the Super Bowl is art.
Why not?
I mean, it's all about profit. Which doesn't.
Well, it's not
that's
all
just my
about profit.
personal
People do it because they love it also.
I don't. But as a production, like.
Yeah, for sure.
They do it because they love it. They also do it because it makes monstrous amounts of money.
So are you saying that if it makes money, it can't be art?
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm
Okay.
saying in the case of, but I have strong opinions on what is and isn't art.
Oh, well, sure,
Which
then.
is like a shortcoming of mine.
I don't think so, but I mean,
It
at
is.
least if you bring them into the, if you say what they are,
Well, you
it'll
described
be
it
easier
being
to have this
impacted by a
conversation.
movie every 3 years, right?
Mhm.
So what was characteristic of those? What were they communicating to you that the
Ugh.
Super Bowl did not?
Well, I mean,
But before even answering that question, the movies that you didn't
think-
like, were
yes.
they not art or were they just not good art?
I think I think it depends on the means of production. Like the relationship between the filmmakers and where the money's coming from feels like kind of important.
So the movies that you liked were
but
produced
it's not
differently?
black and white.
Okay.
Color movies too, yeah.
I do think it tends to be like that, but it's not always so. But
Right.
it's maybe a pattern that I've noticed.
Got it.
Can we make the example different? Instead of the Super Bowl person, if everybody's an artist in this definition of widening art activities, is the Unabomber an artist?
Wow.
Like,
I mean,
I'm voting yes. I mean, I don't know.
You had to make a
It's debatable, but I'm.
but like if everybody is an artist, is the Unabomber an artist?
Well, if everybody's an artist, then
by definition.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly capable of dismantling the repressive effects.
He's certainly true.
And he had a statement, he had a message.
It's very-
He was dismantling something.
It's very hard to get your words on the front page of the New York Times, so yes.
He's an artist.
Controversial artist.
Very controversial.
That doesn't mean we need to incorporate his artwork in the future social order.
Agree.
Yeah, not all art is included in this.
Not I think Robert Durst was an artist.
I mean, we're not talking about this, but there's other ways to dismantle the social order too besides art.
Bombs.
But it says
Right.
Right? Like, that's an easy one. Yeah.
Well,
Well, to make a bomb
is dismantle is literally
that's a science. Science can be an art. It can be.
I don't know. Yeah.
Dulcinee, we should have asked you when he wrote this.
Yeah, that's a really good.
Ooh, contextual.
Probably like the 70s, or you know what? I can just look it up. It's better.
To me, I'm having a bit of an issue, and I don't know exactly. I might misunderstand the whole thing, but widening and then it locks you into everyone can learn to determine the other positions of a total artwork from which perspective. Like a total artwork already means a finite product of some sort. And that's kind of locking it down. So I don't know, at some point he believes that everything gets to a point at like a period where that's it, the end of something, of creation, because every human who learns to determine the other positions, I mean, at some point you're able to, are these continuous moving positions, but you learn to, whatever, anyway. But to me, total artwork is like, what does it mean to have a total artwork?
What was the original language?
German.
Yeah, so total artwork is a term of art in German, right?
It is.
It's
and it means what?
It means what now?
The total artwork.
So it was referred to.
It's
the total.
Wait, can you explain it?
So it's like, it's this idea of life as a total work of art. It's like everything in your home and everything that you encounter is beautiful.
Is it that?
Well, it was initially applied to opera.
Yeah,
it was.
And the idea was that opera
Wagner.
has a story, so that's writing. It has stage directions. It has music. So it has art. It has plastic art. It has narrative art, and it has musical art. So opera is a total artwork.
And it's not
And it was
finite
absolutely
product?
the product and vision of one person.
Yeah,
rather than-
it was Wagner.
Wagner.
It was Wagner.
Okay, so great.
So this is referring in the phrase.
Wait, one person at a time. One.
Finite product.
Breakouts.
I love the debate, but I think we should talk one person at a time. So we all. No.
Breakouts.
Hear what you're thinking.
Why synthesize? We'll come back.
We were talking. We were having a conversation. To be fair, about science and whether science is art, and therefore trying to place it in whether or not it's an art or an activity related to art, which I do think is. Do you want to say something about that?
because I brought up like you take a circuit board, and that looks like a piece of art to someone who doesn't know what it is. It looks like art, and so what makes it not art?
But
is the fact that it has a function.
As a scientist, I would say that what you're talking about is a facsimile, right? It is not what the words mean on the newspaper. It is the newspaper looking interesting to somebody.
Yeah.
That's not science. Isn't art.
But you could take someone who's like who makes a circuit board, right?
Mm-hmm.
They know the mechanism behind it. They know what they're doing, and they might approach it as a work of art. It takes skill, it takes finesse, which is a form of art.
No, craftsman makes the same thing over and over again.
Can you open the door?
I'm gonna try and turn it on.
Can you open the door?
Circuit board designer doesn't make the same thing over and over again.
Thank you.
They just make one thing and then that gets made over and over
What to
again.
make, and like we're talking about like someone working in a line of something, and they say, okay, I'm soldering these pieces to these pieces. This is my job, and then I'm
not everyone who's doing it, but I'm like, you could do it as a form of art.
I think it has to do with intention.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I
True.
think it's the intention you put on it and the expression and authentic expression is what maybe it differentiates.
Yeah.
You can there's the art of science.
Exactly.
But it can be the art of making sushi. It can be the art of anything. It has to do with intention. Of an expression.
An interpretation, maybe.
I think that goes back to the total artwork as a term, as an idea that we're starting to digest too, though. That like the total artwork, I'm losing my train of thought. Wait, I'll let it go. It'll come back to me. It'll come back.
I think it's just a great shift in perspective, like teaching yourself how to look at things differently. Washing the dishes is a dance, that sort of perspective. The person on the line might be doing something programmed and robotic, but maybe they're whistling, or maybe they're, you know, they have something that's going on that kind of provides a little more, because it is context, right? It's context. You can make it your own art piece if you want it to be.
I think that's spot on. And I remembered it was actually about Big Magic, which is a book you referred to me forever ago, and it's by Elizabeth Gilbert. But she talks about like everyday people and their access to creativity, and how her parents are creative people, and they like approached everything as though it was art. Like they just thought, okay, I can fix that thing, I can be creative in this way. And so I also think there might be something about the act of treating life creatively too, or treating it as a work of art. I'm curious if those are different things, to approach something creatively and to sort of embody a lived art practice in everything we do. I don't know.
I look at it that way. Like I studied mindfulness, and like they teach essentially going about your day-to-day activities in a mindful manner. And when you do that, it can definitely become artful. Yeah. Like every little movement you make can become an artful movement if it's done with more intention and
This idea of like art as a I don't know, a philosophy or a mindset or a framework is sounding more and more helpful as we talk about this.
I really
I'm curious
like
how
the
that responds.
definition, like making the unseen seen, as just a description of art. And it connects with what you're saying in bringing this mindful presence to everything that you do.
Yeah, intention.
Should we consider the question of whether what he said has or has not come to pass?
You mean like the social order's changed?
Yeah, has it worked out?
When did he say it? Did you find out? 73?
73.
93.
73.
70.
Was it published in
Unless I'm
93?
dyslexic.
It must be 73 because he was. When did he die?
Yeah. He fought in World War II. So.
Yeah.
Too cold then? Yeah, we can go back and forth between open and closed. It's good.
73.
I can sweat and I'm like the bottom.
What's that?
I mean, yes, it's of a different time. It really is. I mean, it's
Sorry.
a really idealistic statement. But I like it.
But has it worked out? Has he said?
I think sometimes somewhere it works out.
Well, so how do you? This resonated with you because you think it's something that's happening here right now a little bit, or no?
I think there's a way to think about it that I think is pretty fun.
Look over here.
That, to me, embodies this quote really well, and I'm just like kind of stress testing it because I don't really know, but it's a really interesting thing that's happening in that's formal, and temporal and structural, and it's like very kind of theater-like. It's like kind of like a LARP. It's
Live action role play.
it happens in this very specific period of time. There's like always a new cast of characters. Everyone plays. Everyone is in the play. And I think if more people thought about it like that, we could get even weirder.
How weird do you want to get?
What?
How weird do you want to get?
I mean, the town is a stage. It's the most cinematic place I've ever seen. It just like is a set. It's like I said it to my friend. I was like the universe had a big budget when it designed this place, Bombay Beach. It was like, I'm gonna do the production design really well, and I'm gonna do the casting really well, like really good casting agent, really good production designer, really good gaffer. Like the vibe is good, cinematically speaking. And so you're always in a fucking movie here, and you can make it more movie if you want. Like you can go there, and I think if more people were making it into a movie, it would become a really cool, weird. It's already cool and weird.
See, sometimes I wonder if what?
Nothing else.
Okay. Sometimes I wonder if a technology like Instagram is encouraging people to view their lives as a movie which they can share with other people, and whether that is not in fact bad. So maybe I think our culture definitely has sort of taken up this quote and pushes in the direction of telling us that one of the things you should do with your day is to turn your day and the people you, as you said poetically, the people that you know as characters in a movie that you're directing and promoting.
But the problem is the screen is really small and it's commodified to sell more shares of Facebook. And maybe that's where the widening of the definition of art should come. And we could turn our lives into a work of art that's not digestible on Instagram,
I literally
but has a little bit.
on Instagram.
How does
It's not a literal movie. Wait, I just want to make sure it's not a literal movie. Like, we're not here literally making a movie. I kind of wish. I wish we were making a movie, but that's like separate. Like, we'll make a movie later in the year. But right now, it is just such that you feel like you are inside of a movie. We're not making a movie.
Right, but I think a lot of people nowadays feel like they're inside of a movie, and it's not necessarily a good thing.
When you see a lot of people, like, I think you're living in a very, very small segment of the world to say that.
Granted, I'm talking about a certain sector of Americans under 30.
Okay.
If everybody's an artist, is nobody an artist? Like, I'm from Russia, right? If everybody's an alcoholic, nobody's an alcoholic. There are
That's
no
clearly
alcoholics
false.
in Russia. As long as they go to work, right? It's only your like one weird uncle who's like too wasted to do anything. But like, if we're widening the definition and everybody's an artist, is there any value?
So I'm this part I'm kind of sympathetic to, and this is the argument I'll give for it, which is art is something like consciously changing the rules of the social game that you've inherited. And you can think of societies where nobody does that, where everybody is a little bit like bees or something. They do what has been handed down to them. If your father made candles, you make candles. And you can think of societies where a few people do it, and somebody says, I'm going to make a sculpture showing how a woman can stand like this. She doesn't always have to stand like this. So there are people who have there's a caste of people who are almost like shamans, who are explicitly in charge of making us aware of the rules that we've received and changing them. And you can be utopian, as this author is, and say, well, what if everybody had the ability? What if we democratized that, and everyone, in the same way as, there used to be kings and nobles, but now everybody can have a hand in the political decision making. Maybe everybody can have a hand in the renegotiation of the rules that are given us and reimagining. Conceivably that could happen, and I don't think that needs to mean it's meaningless. I think it could still be meaningful. It could just be shared by everybody.
I know he broadens out, he says we've got to broaden out the idea of the artist, but I don't know about the rest of you, but my hackles were raised right from the start with this kind of assumption, which he then undermines, which is that the artist is the ultimate person to be. It's the best way. There's so many things more important in society than being an artist.
Like what?
Being a janitor.
Well,
Yeah,
no, I completely agree, and I would extend the list for there's thousands of activities.
It's just a very self-aggrandizing thing for an artist to say.
So this is the ultimate form of self-aggrandizement, in that he starts off with this thing of, here am I, the artist, and then it's a version of you too could have a body like mine. That was a quote. That was not me.
But I believe that art comes after learning. So you learn something, and then applying that learning, then it becomes something else. So, for example, parenting is a learned skill, but learning to do it well or doing it well, it becomes an art. So when are you moving from acting from a part of your brain that makes it sort of known, and then it's sort of mechanical, versus you kind of flow with the interaction between different parts of this larger organism, and that's art to me.
Yeah.
So
So put your hackles down.
Ah, okay, they are down. Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of hinting at like the act of art and creating art. Like, say the youth or the people, were to engage with creating art, it would inherently embed something, give them something in return that would help them dismantle these structures that are put in place, And there, he's giving freedom. He's giving the card, for people to attempt art, so that they can go through that process of the evolution,
Yeah, he says every human being is an artist. So it's not saying that the janitor is not an artist.
He's saying that then ultimately the janitor we can all be artists, but it still has this thing of the artist as some sort of ideal, doesn't it?
Well, maybe he's asking everyone to be more thoughtful and aware of their like the intent of it, right? So if we all treat our roles as an art.
Oh, then I think I'd be very happy if we rewrite this and substitute the word citizen then instead of artist.
Or janitor.
Well,
The artist too can be a janitor.
But there's no word for total citizen. I feel like no, this is a back formation from total artwork to like by almost definition one must in order to create. Like I feel like that's the point. Is this the thing which does not yet exist, which are these kind of amorphous positions of how something will be created in the future.
So, Geoff, if we defined art as reimagining new possibilities, would you still find this an elitist conception, or an overly aggrandizing? Because I do think if you're in a society where it's not working, then indeed reimagining possibilities that might work is very important, and possibly even more important than being a janitor, because it's the janitor becomes a little bit like the deck chair rearranger on the Titanic, right?
Well, I guess when he said this, was it different than earlier in history, like all the other revolutions that rewrote the social order? Was it only artists that led the revolution?
I think he would probably call Lenin an artist.
Yeah, I guess that's why I feel the quote is sloppy, because the first part, and everyone's an artist.
I think you could say anybody who's reimagining social possibilities is an artist, and you could do that. But that doesn't mean everybody's an artist.
Capable of being an artist.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, as a definition, if you're reimagining social possibilities, you're an artist. Most people don't do that, and many people who do that, their canvas might be they might
Yeah, that's what
the person who invented the internet.
I socially imagine that I have really big boobs and I'm blonde, right? That's reimagining what you just said. This
is it?
Yeah, right? Like under your definition that you're reimagining the social fabric, right?
So your boobs are the social fabric.
No, this environment is a social fabric. I'm reimagining by saying like I look fucking different and like Pamela Anderson style, right?
Yeah,
like,
no. That's
am
not,
I an artist?
That's
No.
not exactly what I meant by reimagining a possibility. I think it's. Let me come up with a perspicuous example. A perspicuous example would be an advocate for gay marriage who's saying, I am reimagining marriage as something that could happen between two women. That's not like a single man imagining he was married. It's reimagining what marriage is going to be moving forward, not just who will be married and who won't be married.
So every politician is an artist.
Yeah, it almost seems like the quote is then more just saying anyone who's ever caused a revolution or will cause a revolution by definition is an artist.
Certainly.
I do think he thinks that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I think that's true.
Peace.
Yeah.
I think you could say that there are two kinds of politicians. A politician who says, you know what, the police should get 10% less of our money and the bridge builders should get 10% more. Maybe that person is not an artist, or there's sort of a limiting case of an artist. But a politician who says, domestic labor should also be rewarded, or a universal basic income, someone who's changing the rules of the game, or even the founding fathers of the U.S. who says, the executive will be kicked out every 8 years. There's a spectrum, but I think he's drawing attention to reimagining fundamentally different ways of living.
Yeah. I mean, I one absurd example too. Like, Trump pushes the button. All of society is reimagined, and I don't think that he was being creative per se.
Right. Yeah. The meteor that killed the dinosaurs wasn't an artist. It was just
I think there's something a little bit, but I'm just thinking about like the necessity of the artist a little bit over here. I think maybe prompted a little bit by your question about like why is art an ideal? And my thought was like, well, creators have been idolized, maybe problematically, in the Western world since the beginning of our like biblical time, right? That like God as creator is great because they did that, right, so to speak. So if that is in here, I think we could argue it's inherited from like the society in which he is, if that makes sense, that creation is on a high in that way. But I'm thinking about, to go back to the necessity of the art thing, I'm thinking about artists holding a mirror to society, like Nina Simone style. And I'm thinking, why would I need to hold a mirror to a society that knows itself, right? Like in the nonprofit world, we've been talking a lot about like, okay, as a theater, we're a nonprofit. We have a mission. Shouldn't that mission be like accomplishable? Why does it go on forever and ever and ever? Is that not kind of an example of a sick society? So is this total artwork a corrected society where that mirror is no longer necessary because it knows itself?
Well, you have to go to the dentist every year. There's anything wrong with dentists. You need to keep at it, right?
You go twice a year now.
The dentist twice a year.
Your nonprofit sees the total artwork. It sees its position relative to the total artwork, and it's trying to get to that future social order through its actions, right?
I think you could argue
Just
that.
because it's not accomplished in this decade or your lifetime doesn't mean it's not accomplishable. It just means that we, in like our little ant-based human lives, like can't see the grand lifetime of when it is going to happen.
Yeah.
That total artwork of the future.
At individual level. Huh? You say at our level of ant-like thing, but yet it says every human is capable. So the point is, I feel like we are not doing art right now by viewing it through language. Like, how do you appreciate art? What is art? What is... Every human is able to reach a place in itself that gets creative and art-like. And if you allow yourself to be in that space, like we say, you brought it up earlier today about children being creative, although I think you disagreed with our position because you don't want us to go back to that state. And yet that childlike state of being where creativity is a potential, like at the highest potential level. Now, not that each kid creates some sort of a genius work, far from it, but with what part of self are we actually able to dive into creativity? And just being and dissecting words might not be it.
Visceral and emotional.
It's even beyond that. I think it's sort of beyond integrating mind and
I don't know
the affect.
I don't know if this helps, but Nori found out a fun fact here that he was a gunner during World War II in a bomber squadron. Shot down, prisoner of war with the Brits. Pretty cool.
That's rough shit. And he considered art, and whoever it was with the Ukraine front, said, that like you can't conceptualize art because you're so caught up in the daily survival of stuff, and then this person maybe was able to. That's interesting.
I mean, he had art after.
Not
Sure.
Well, maybe
I think art and war will coexist for a long while. You know what I
I
mean?
think what I'm saying is that relationship is kind of what I'm pointing to.
Like,
Yeah.
It's never, I don't think it will be one or the other.
Yeah.
Anyways. I feel like you guys don't really like it that much.
What do you mean? If we didn't like it, no one would say anything about it.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I feel like there's something there. I'm gonna try to express it. If when we're talking about social order, we think about status. So there's no status in being a janitor, and there's a status in being an artist. and I feel like as the definition, the narrow definition that we have today, but if you remove that from the equation, and humans are weird, right? We like all kinds of different shit. Like someone's maybe favorite thing in life and what they really want to do, what they really feel self-actualized is being a janitor. And maybe they don't choose that because there's no status or money in doing that. But if we change the social order, and if that was not a question, like how would the world look like? What would emerge of human beings self-actualizing themselves? Like what would emerge if every person could make their life a piece of art because they are self-actualizing and doing what they are being, what they're self-actualizing their being. What would that total artwork look like?
But that's predicated upon the foundation of no hunger, we have shelter, we have safety, we have some kind of understanding that tomorrow will be okay.
Basic needs are being met.
Do you think you can die beautifully?
Yes.
Yes.
That should be our next salon.
Followed by suicide.
Yes.
Jonestown.
I mean,
Well, the poet said,
you can
dying
make it
is an
aesthetic.
art like everything else. I do it extraordinarily well.
Indeed.
Can we die extraordinarily well?
Yes.
Well, if we can die extraordinarily well, then not having food or water or air wouldn't mean we cannot do art, because we can do art in our manner of demise.
Agree.
I think that should be the subject of the next salon.
I mean, the story of our country
But there shouldn't be a
about
laboratory.
people being creative
No.
with a lack of resources.
Sure.
What it's more than, yeah, I mean.
People
it's-
will always want to have sex though, regardless of like
What's the
war or
point?
stress.
Yeah, I mean, sex, that's the beauty of
Sex
it.
and
Yeah, I mean, whatever, but just surviving.
there is.
It's an extraordinarily creative process. No, go on.
I keep getting a little bit stuck on, I think, creation versus art, because I think just the bringing up of sex really makes me think about that. Because yes, I think of course like we are creating a being that is like a wild act of intelligent design I don't understand, but I'm thinking about like art as an object maybe, and art and its activities also is still stunting me, because I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like a library that houses books? Like what is that? So I don't know. I'll stop talking there, but I'm just thinking about those two things.
We have to run, but I keep coming back to art as a service, and kind of as this community.
Like
has
what?
been inundated with art, it's kind of snowballed into other things like health, like food, and for this community. You know, there's been programs that have risen kind of through this vector of art. Art.
Yeah.
Oh, the catalyst. Great sayonara statement.
Should we wrap it up on that?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah.
I
Closing
think people might,
statements.
I think that was great. Art as service, art as community. These are good ways to expand and think about what we try to do, hopefully.
Could we
I mean,
end
I'm
with
here.
with another quote, which gets rid of this any suggestion of art as being some ideal? Because I think a much more valuable thing is how everyone can become good citizens. So in 1958, Raymond Williams, in his essay "Culture is Ordinary," writes something which is sort of the same sort of stuff, and he says very simply, we must emphasize not the ladder but the common highway, because every person's skill is a common gain of breath, and every person's ignorance diminishes me. And I like that very much, because it gets rid of that thing that we start with, which is this artist being in some position of some ideal position of that which is the supreme fulfillment of human possibility.
Why do you want to get away from that,
Can we
though?
end instead on another quote, Geoff Wikipedia?
I didn't have to look at
Oh,
that quote on
shots
my phone.
fired!
Slide and end on this quote.
Quote war!
From the former President George Bush Jr.
I was gonna bring
Junior.
him up. I was gonna be like, but wait.
Random connection on a full moon.
Is he an artist?
George Bush Jr. said, "Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you can't get fooled again."
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my quote was better. And I didn't look it up on. Did I look at my phone for that?
You didn't.
Thank you.
Your missing word quote was Geoff Wikipedia, not what Bush said.
That was great. You guys rock. Words.
Words. Thank you, everyone. Let's have more drinking.
Oh, great. So
Indeed.
you don't have to leave then.
No.
Oh, hooray.
We can even keep talking. It just won't be under the guise of the official salon. I think the salon for an hour, though, is